And I will hand over to Mark to introduce the session, but I will be here in the background if there are any questions from Calc.
Thank you, Charmaine. Good morning, everybody. As Charmaine very kindly said, number 3 in the series of these webinars. Previous webinars, we talked about the things that you must publish on your website, the regulatory things, and keeping it accessible. Well, today's session is how you make best use of your council's website. I'm going to be sharing some slides, and we're going to be going through a fairly practical process of going through how you can make best use of your most powerful communication tool. I think it's fair to say that really, regardless of your parish or your town size, it's really hard to reach people. Community engagement is something that we all should do, and as regulars to my webinars know, you'll know that I'm a parish councillor of 12 years, but just to offset that, I did take my ILCA last year, so hopefully I'm offset one against the other. But look, community engagement is really tricky, but your website is your friend. Your website is your best way to do that because it's going to have the best reach. It's the tool that's going to be able to get into people's lives, get into the community much more than you can individually do as a parish. You might publish a newsletter or a handout, something like that goes out. You might even use a Facebook page, but as I'm sure you have all experienced, social media channels as a sole form of communicating into the community can present some problems. So look, what we're going to do, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through a sort of a series of tips, techniques and such like that you can use within your parish with your website. And let's get started. So Charmaine, can everybody see my presentation slides?
We can.
Great, thank you. Okay, so there we go. Let's get stuck in. I'm going to cover how you can make best use of your website, but not just from the legal necessity. We've already covered the things that you've got to publish on your website and in an accessible way. Today's session is about using that website tool for improving community engagement. It matters because it's going to help you increase transparency for sure, but it's also going to strengthen your community involvement and your council's position within the community. We'll just go through a few refresher points on what it is that you've got to publish, but most importantly, we're going to be talking about creating that space on your website and getting people to it and using that, enhancing the usability and engagement. So let's get stuck in. Well, as I said right at the start, your website is your best communication tool with the widest reach. With the best will in the world, you are not going to be able to reach as many people with a single concise message other than your website. You can use social media to help, but there are challenges with the way that is communicated, with the way that works. So this is you. This is your clerk. And Charmaine, you've got your hand up there.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just don't want to interrupt you. I think we need to switch the view to presenter view, maybe. Just because it's a bit smaller to read the smaller print.
Okay.
I think it might be. I can't see, but it's usually up the top. One of those top 3.
Let's try again. I'll just stop sharing for a second. Let's try again. I apologize. I've never had this before. Let's try again. How about now?
It's not sharing anything currently that I can see. It started sharing, it's just loading for me now. Yep, and then if you go to, yeah, if you try that,
How's that?
that's perfect. Can everybody read that now? It's just we'd had a couple in the comments saying that it was difficult
Okay.
to see the size. Is that okay now?
Yeah.
I have a
I
couple.
can't make it any bigger than that.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Mark. Sorry
All
about
right. Thank you. All right. So, and by the way, I can't see the chat whilst we're going along here. So if anybody does want to ask any questions, I think the best thing to do is just interrupt me. Just say, "Hey, Mark," and so on as we go. I will do questions at the end as well. So look, let's look at the must-have versus should-have. Obviously, the must-haves are all of the regulatory things that you've got to publish. You all know that. We've covered that in previous sessions. But this is more of the should-have. What should you be publishing? So what are the sorts of things that you can consider? Informing everybody of local initiatives. So things going on, not necessarily in your own parish or in your own town, but local areas, local groups, local initiatives, local campaigns. Obviously, you should be publishing the information on what services your council provides. That's really helpful. It's a signposting thing. Surprisingly, not as many people do it as they should. And of course, it creates community confusion as to which council is responsible for what. It's hard for members of the community to understand that a parish or a town council isn't necessarily responsible for the park or the potholes or the street lights. So making sure that your website has got a page or some kind of structure to the menu system that make it very clear. These are the things that the parish and the town council look after, and these are the things that the principal authorities look after. Another aspect, of course, is to making sure that people know where to go for help for those other services. Signposting is the term that us web people use, but it's a good term. Making use of the landscape that you've got on your website homepage and your menu system to point people in the right direction is one of the best ways to help your community. Another aspect to include on your site are projects and goals of the council. We see many parish and town council websites. As you might imagine, we build 2 new sites a week. And one of the things that we fail to see regularly are the views, the missions, the projects, the future desires of what that council wants to try and achieve. People do want to see what is planned, what's discussed. And of course, it's a known thing because when the councillors sit down and they work out their precept, they will be talking about the next year's projects, no matter what size of the council you are. So it's good to articulate that because not everybody is going to deep dive into the budget info. Yes, people will, but not everybody will. So having a page that talks about these are our next 12 months, our next 2 years, ideas of things we want to try and achieve. Doesn't matter what it is. That then leads us into things like consultations and views from the community. Going out to the community and asking their opinion. Don't assume as a council you know what people want. We can, and I've been a councillor for 12 years, and I think it's fair to say that sometimes there can be a little bit of an assumption from councillors' part where they assume they know what the community wants or needs. Don't assume anything. I think it's really important to regularly ask. Now you can do that with simple things like little forms on the web page for people to fill in and you can gather up that info. I'll give you a perfect example. In my village, we have, I was explaining this to Charmaine before we started, we have a bit of a problem with car crime, vehicle crime. And our local police force are seemingly useless in terms of being able to tell us how big the problem is, but we only have to look at Facebook to see the scale of the number of people reporting it. So we created a page on our website, and on there we put a form, and it said, tell us about any vehicle crime that you've experienced in the last 12 months. And we put some drop down menus so that we can categorize it, and an opportunity for people to provide a little bit of description. And we are gathering that information up. And whilst it's a little bit of a negative subject, obviously something positive can come out of it, because it means that we can harvest that information, put it in a report, and take it to the police and our principal authority and say, there is clearly a problem. Can you support us? So that's just one idea. That's one small concept. We did one another couple of years ago where we went out to our community to ask them about, is it time to refresh the playground? If we increase the precept by X amount, we can put a new playground in. The last time the playground was updated was 38, 40 years ago. Again, seeking the views. These are good tools to use by adding a simple form or some forms to the website. And of course, the other things to add are telling people what's going on in and around the area. Communicate. A website isn't social media platform as such, but nonetheless, it has an element of that. You know, by its very nature, social means you do have to turn up. You do have to put content on there. So even if it's only once a week, once a month, put a piece of news on there. Tell people about other local organisations and groups, what's going on. These are all helpful things to help with the community. So earlier on, I was talking about signposting. Your parish, your town are not responsible for every service, but you are responsible for telling people where to go for other things. So as you can see here, look, our friends at Stony, they use our website platform, and they have identified on their homepage a really good way to help their community is to provide these signposts. These boxes with links, some of these links go to the page within the Stony website, others go to the Principal Authority's website. And these pieces of feedback, why these 9 boxes, are based on the subject of the phone calls, the subject of the emails that the clerk and the council staff receive. So if they're getting lots of emails from people saying, I've got a missed bin collection, no, that isn't the parish council or the town council, it's your principal authority. So providing a button, a link on the homepage that goes off to the principal authority's refuse page is a really good thing. It might not feel like community engagement, but it is. A helpful council is one that can provide help. And again, some of these things will link to pages within your parish or your town council's website. Now, these might seem like obvious things to do, but one of the most frustrating things that we hear from users, members of the community, when they use a parish or a town council website is, I can't find what I needed. That's the #1 gripe. So making sure that it's very clear on the menu system and those homepage signposts that go here for this, go there for that, that is a really good way to help your community. Beyond the compliance sides of things, and we've already talked about that in previous sessions, enhancing that community, creating that two-way communication channel is a really good thing, because it's going to mean that you're going to be able to articulate to your community, your parishioners, local organisations, what the council is trying to do, the things that you've got on your mission list, but also you can get some feedback from that. As I mentioned earlier, having those surveys, those polls, those forms on your website to gather the feedback is a really good thing to do. One thing to note, GDPR compliance, it's not wrong for a website to capture people's details, but have a purge process in place. Make sure that if your website is storing details from people, that you've made a diary note to go back into the website admin area and purge it when you've finished with the project. A danger point is where the website endlessly accumulates people's details indefinitely. And then, of course, worst case scenario, website gets hacked, details get exposed, you've got a GDPR problem. So making sure that you have that process in place to purge the details is a good thing to do. Make sure the Contact Us form is easy to use and works on a mobile. This may sound patently obvious, but it's surprising just how difficult it is to find something like that on some parish and town council websites, and also that it works on a mobile. We know that more than 86% of all parish and town council website visitors are using their mobile phone. They're going to be on their phone, on the sofa, when they want to connect with the council. That's just the way it is. So making sure that the forms on your website actually work and that they are usable on the phone. Because sometimes on the mobile experience, those fields can run off the side of the screen and you can't get to the buttons. It just doesn't work. So that's where people are going to be engaging with the council. It might feel like it's not engagement, but it is. If somebody's going to your website and they're going to the Contact Us form, they want to engage with you. So don't put barriers in their way by making the form difficult to use or doesn't work. Similarly, think or consider having a monthly email newsletter that people can subscribe to. You can connect your website to something like MailChimp or Sendinblue. These have got very good GDPR compliant systems to be able to gather up people's email addresses and provide that important unsubscribe function as well. That's how you meet your GDPR compliance. But it's a good way to be able to get into people's lives when you've got, as a council, something to say. Might not be that often, but if you provide that subscription sign up method on your website, it means that once a week, once a month, whenever it is, you can create a newsletter in MailChimp and send it out to all the subscribers. More people are likely to read an email that arrives than they are to go to a website, a council website of their own volition, because it's injecting into their life. Now let's talk about social media, because it is a little bit of the Wild West when it comes to the internet. I know that some councils shy away from it completely. Maybe they've had a tricky experience in the past. Some really don't know what to do. Some of you may use it to great success. But fundamentally, a social media channel is best used to bring in visitors to your website for the fuller experience. Don't have the full conversation on social media. And start the conversation on social media and make sure that they end up at the website. Because here comes the bad news. The community doesn't hang out on your website. I know. I mentioned this last week. I know it's really bad news and it must be crushing for you. But they don't. But they do hang out on Facebook. So you go there to post. That's the point of engagement. So here you go on the screen now. This is a very typical, and to some of you, this may be what you're doing. And if it is, that's great. But this is the best practice method. A, make sure that the full article of whatever it is that you want to tell people about is on your website. We call it the single point of truth. So it's within the website, within the council's website. Hopefully you're on a .gov.uk domain, so people can see that it is authentic. It is the point of authenticity. If you're not on a .gov.uk domain, please connect with me afterwards, because we can sort that out for you. So you've got the full article on your website. You go on to the council's Facebook page and you share a headline, like you've got here. The parish council are considering updating the neighbourhood plan that includes playgrounds, bus stops and more dog bins. I think I've condensed parish council life into those three things. For more details, visit the website and put the link to the exact page. That is the best thing to do. That is the best operation, because then you've injected that into people's lives. People are in Facebook. They see that in their feed. and they will end up at the council's website for the full truth, the full article. No, they cannot comment on the council's website. Great, you don't want them to. And actually, and this is quite a subjective view, but this is my view based on hundreds and hundreds of parish and town council websites and experience. Make your council website, your council Facebook page one way, outward message only, no comments. Because you cannot trust people. You cannot allow people to post on the parish or the town council's Facebook page in a publicly acceptable way. The broadness and potential for trouble is too great. Make it an outward communication channel only. Now, there are village and town Facebook pages where people can open up conversations and turn into the keyboard warriors, but that's not the parish or the town council's Facebook page. People will subscribe and follow the parish and town council Facebook page because they'll want to keep up to date with what's going on. It's convenient. It suits lifestyle to have that little feed into what's going on at the council within the environment of Facebook. And then when they want to digest more, they follow a link to the council's website. And over time, people will start to learn to just go directly to the council's website for the full story. But I would say on the whole and for the most part, this is best practice. This is the way that you should be doing it. Now, whilst we're on the subject of social media channels, always make sure that there's more than one admin of the page. The number of times we have councillors come to us to say, oh, we can't access the council's Facebook page because the previous clerk, it was associated with them and they've left and they don't use Facebook anymore and da da da. And suddenly you've got this stagnating Facebook page that might have comments to be allowed, and it's just turning into a bit of a Wild West. So make sure that if you do have a Facebook page, that there is more than one admin. I would suggest, if you are a small council, clerk and chair, or if you've got team members, a couple of the team members. Well, why do all of this? Well, it builds transparency and trust. There is a lot of misunderstanding, misrepresentation, lack of trust, actually. People have got this, unfortunately, there's this hang up and still this feeling of, oh, the council's just going to do this, don't trust them. They're just going to decide. They're going to allow big planning applications, all of that usual stuff. But by being transparent, by creating that regular posting of information, does demonstrate that you are connecting with the community and more trust can be built up. Consider having regular news or blog posts or updates from your council members. So maybe you have a page on your website that is an update from the chair, and maybe it's once a month or once a week, whatever it is. And the full article is on the website, but that it's posted onto the council's Facebook page as an update from the chair. These are good things. People do want to know what's going on, and it's a very good way to build trust. Now, I've put on here also consider live streaming of meetings and things like that. I think there is a time and a place for these sorts of things, but for the most part, I would actually do encourage people to attend the meetings in person more. I mean, let's be clear, the number of times I have sat in a parish council meeting and you stare out at the vast public gallery of 3 chairs and there's nobody there. That unfortunately is quite common. And often people will only turn up when there's something hot or contentious going on. But look, what it does do is by using the website as the single point of truth, telling people what the council are doing or other groups, but being able to leverage Facebook as a place where people hang out and see stuff, use that as your place to post the signpost into your website of local initiatives and success stories, things that have done well. From planting a tree, we did it recently in my own parish. We finally got around to choosing a tree in memory of Her Majesty the Queen, and we finally planted it in the park, and we got one of those nice black metal railings with gold knobbly bits on the top with a little plaque on the front of it. We finally got around to planting it and getting it set in the park. And we did a little success story on the website there. That's just one small thing. But it could be that you've just redone the skate park or whatever it is. Share these success stories on your website and then onto social media. Because if you don't tell people what you're doing, people will guess or make up in their own mind what parish and town councils get up to. So tell people the success stories. You'd be surprised how much positive feedback there is. I think also there's another angle here. There are a great number of people in all of our communities who want to help. They won't necessarily want to become a councillor or work for the council, but they do want to do volunteer work in the community. And these are very good things to promote and champion. Whether it's joining a local group to help take elderly people shopping once a week, or whatever it is, these kind of volunteer opportunities are good things for the council to be seen to be promoting. So again, if it's appropriate, having it on your website and then using the power of Facebook to send people to the website to get the fuller details. Because it is all about the users in the community. Now, earlier on, we talked about one of the most commonly heard complaints and frustrations about a council's website is, oh, it's too difficult to find stuff. I don't know where I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just Google it. Well, make sure that your website has got some clear navigation, easy to find sections. Yes, you've got to have the regulatory things, but make it clear where people find services and local organisations. Consider using something called a mega nav. If you're on the Aubergine platform, you'll be very familiar with the mega navs. I'll show you in a minute. They look a little bit like this. When you mouse over on one of the menus, you get a large drop-down area, and it's columnized and it's got a section title. This is very clear for people to see where they go. It's reducing the number of clicks. It's reducing the potential for frustration and being lost on the website. So consider using these kind of things. The signposting of who does what and where is key. I think if I were going to give you one, if I were to ask you to take away one piece of advice from today that you can deploy and make use of, it's that look at the homepage and look at the signposts that you've got on it. Can you improve it? Can you direct people with buttons or links to things that are the parish or the town council's responsibility and the links to your principal authority? Call it useful links. Call it local services where to go, something like that. That single action will massively improve your community's experience. Those are the main communication points, really. Think about the typical phone call topics, the typical email topics that you receive that are things that are nothing to do with your parish or your town and their principal authority. Think about those things, because those are most likely the right sort of things to put those signposts on the website. Another aspect, which I know I briefly covered a little while ago, make sure that your website is mobile friendly. We're not going to get embroiled into the accessibility nature. We've covered that over the last 2 sessions, but mobile friendly is really important. I'd always advise going through your parish or your town council's website on your phone. Click all the way through, go to loads of pages. Don't assume it works. Don't assume it's just going to be okay, because it might not be. And you won't know until somebody tells you. But unfortunately, most people don't tell you that there's something wrong. They'll just moan. or you just won't get any engagement. It's your responsibility to check your website. So every now and again, pick up your phone, click through pages, go to the contact forms, submit a test, make sure it arrives. It's a bit like checking the oil and the water and the washer bottle on your car. Just every now and again, just check those things. Test it across the browsers and test those forms. So there's like I say, there's those mega navs. This is really good. If you're, like I say, if you're with Aubergine, this is how we do our menus. If you're not, consider having a menu that works like this. Now, these are other features that you can consider adding to the website that will help with creating a place for people to go to feel a little bit more part of that community. A community hub, an events calendar, up and coming events, whether it's just council meetings or whether it's local events, you know, firework do's, summer jamboree parties, local events. Have a calendar on there that shows people what's going on. And also consider allowing residents and people in the community to fill in a form to tell you about events going on. You can't know about everything, but if they can fill in a form to tell you about them, you can consider adding them to the website. Other things to add, things like a map. Now, maps are a little bit tricky when it comes to accessibility. I know I did say I wasn't going to touch on this very much, but I am going to talk about maps and accessibility. Maps fundamentally are a visual interface, which means that you need sight. If you do not have sight or you interact with a website in a visual way, maps can be tricky, because if you only use the map to present information, anybody who doesn't use a computer in a visual way is being compromised. They can't have that information. So if you are going to use a map, and they are great tools, local landmarks, parks, council facilities. I saw one the other day, and it's up in the Lake District, and the council is responsible for all 48 benches that run around one of the famous lakes. And they had created a map with a pin of all the locations of all of the benches, and then on the web page a list of the names of all of the benches and their locations. Brilliant idea. But you can use it for other things like parks, dog bins. Who doesn't want to know where the parish's dog bins are? But these are helpful pieces of community information, highlighting those services. Who looks after what? Having a page that says the parish or the town council look after the benches, the dog bins, the public toilet, the bus stops. On the right hand side, this is what the principal authority look after: street lights, potholes, drains, da-da-da-da-da. These might seem obvious, but they are not used as much as they could be. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, having an A to Z of the services, that who does what, this is a really good way, because then people can trust going to the website as a point of truth. Where's the so-and-so service? I'm going to go to the parish council website, list of services, great. It's a parish council thing, I can contact. Oh, it's a principal authority thing, off I go. Having that listing is a really good way to make sure that people know where to go. Now let's talk about social media a bit more and where it crosses over with a website. Social media can be used to great effect within some fairly tightly controlled boundaries and rules. You should be linking to your website as the main single point of truth, but make sure that there are some icons or something on your website that show people where the social media channels are. Not everybody uses Facebook or Instagram. So you can do that, but do not embed your social channels, the feeds onto your website. You might think that that's a really good way to have active content. You don't have the time to update the website. So this is a good way to show stuff's always changing. This is a mistake. This is a mistake for two reasons. One, not one single social media channel is accessible and meets the accessibility requirements. By embedding it on your website, you are breaking the accessible nature. But two, you're giving people a parachute to leave your website. The hardest thing to do is to get people on the parish council or the town council's website. Don't give them a reason to leave straight away. By all means, have some links with some icons, but it should be from social to your website. Using the social media channel to attract interest, like I said with the example earlier on, short headline and a link for the full article. And as I've also mentioned before, consider making that Facebook page outward messaging only. So no commenting by members of the public, because you can't control that content and you won't have the time to be going through it every 5 minutes and deleting stuff. And you definitely shouldn't be engaging publicly, because it will turn into a Wild West. So making sure that you've got those tight controls is a good thing to do. But underpin all of that with a social media policy so that everybody, council officials and councillors, know what the rules of engagement are within the social environment. I'm sure Charmaine and Laura and our friends at Calc will be able to help you, point you in the direction of a social media policy model document. Now, regular updates, refreshes, these kind of things. Again, you can use this. This is an important thing. Providing those regular updates on social as to what the council's been up to. It could be that you've managed to get the playground equipment cleaned, but post the article on social media. Regular pieces of news like that are helpful. Now, here's a tip. People are very habitual when it comes to using Facebook. What do I mean by that? I mean, people will use Facebook and Instagram, channels like that, at the same time of day and usually the same days of the week. Very habitual. Which means that your messages on those channels are only going to be seen by certain people at certain times. Sorry, did you have a question? No? Okay. So by that I mean trial different times of the day and different days of the week when you publish on Facebook, because that's going to reach different demographic, different people who maybe, if you're publishing in the day, people who are working in the day won't necessarily see it. And then if they use Facebook at night, it might be that that article is just way too down the feed and they might not get to it. So consider posting at different days and different times of the day to get a bit of different user groups. It's also worth running something called Google Analytics on your website. It's a free service run by Google. You might need your developer to help you. Why use something like that? Well, it's going to tell you exactly the number of people who come to your website and from where. So this is particularly good if you're running some consultations, if you've got some big projects on the go. This is going to tell you where people have come from and what they searched to arrive at your website. Because again, going back to the assumption, don't assume that what you're putting on your site is what people are interested in. But by looking at the analytics, it's going to tell you which pages people go to regularly. If you've got a consultation or something going on at the moment, you'll be able to see just how many people visited the consultation page. A good example of this is if you're going through a neighbourhood plan creation or refreshing it. We've just refreshed ours in our village. Being able to look at the analytics and seeing how many people are going to that neighbourhood plan consultation page. And again, by adding forms, surveys, forms onto the website to get some feedback, or as part of those consultations, these are fantastic community engagement tools. You as the clerk, as the council official, you can't go out and knock on the door of everybody. But what you can do is provide that conversation starting point by putting those things on the website and lighting the fire, so to speak, in a positive way by starting the conversation on social media. The parish council are considering refreshing the neighbourhood plan to make it more relevant for the next 20 years, and it's going to include X, Y, and Z. Come and have your say. Now, you're going to provide the link to the web page. You are going to, as I'm sure you're all very experienced clerks and council officers, there are always going to be those members of the community that will exercise their right to have their say in a very vocal and perhaps colourful way. That's just life. But seeking that active feedback and using forms and things is a really good way. But by using those and analytics, it's avoiding you guessing of what you think, what council thinks people want to hear. Ask. Now, just sort of touching on that subject of the internet being a little bit of a wild west, and I'm sure we have all experienced and seen how the keyboard warriors can be very vocal and challenging with their communications on Facebook, because it is unmoderated to a large degree. So making sure that council officers or whoever has control of the website and also the social media channel, that there are some clearly defined best practice publishing and communication techniques established with training. This is really important, because what's bad, what doesn't look good, what is a negative experience is where people take it upon themselves to post something. Maybe they are a councillor, maybe they are a council official. It's incredibly unlikely that a council official would do this, but councillors, they're a different, I can say it, different breed. They often feel that they are entitled to go onto the village or the town's public Facebook page and comment. And so there are clearly defined blurring of lines whether they are commenting as a member of the community or are they commenting as a councillor. And this is tricky. So establishing a best practice publishing policy and training is for all members of the council, officials and members, is really important, because then there are rules. Then there are boundaries by which everybody can go by, and you can have a plan if something goes wrong. Unfortunately, we often end up having to be quite reactive when something has gone wrong and there isn't a plan and there hasn't been any training. And it's really hard to claw stuff back when it's gone out and online. I'd say at this point, and this is a really good thing, if you are considering actively enhancing and improving your online, your Facebook and your Instagram comms, why don't you consider talking to Dan at Breakthrough Communications? I'm sure you've seen Dan at other events. Dan and his team there are experts at helping councils create a social media strategy and the supporting documents. So I very much encourage that. So look, create those rules. Rules are good, but also it means that you're creating a good legacy as well. You aren't always going to be the clerk. You win the lottery tomorrow, you definitely aren't going to be. But the same goes for councillors. If councillors are going to be fairly transient. So creating a good process and policy means that as time passes, the council has a robust infrastructure to publish online. But it's also quite good to set out the aims in a communication document. The council is aiming to publish more events and what we are up to and how we are performing. Let's be clear, some councils, less so with small village parish councils, but certainly town councils, councillors will be elected based on the things that they want and they say they're going to champion. Well, let's get some of that information out into a document. As I've mentioned before, social media channels, outbound only. I know I've mentioned this over and over, but I can't emphasize it enough. Don't enter into discussions on any other channels apart from official channels. And it's worth you going away and just checking if you do have a Facebook page, make sure that the page can't be posted on apart from admins. And making sure that all of the team members know the rules. So look, we're coming to the end of today's session. I think there's a lot there. As I mentioned before, if you take away 1 or 2 tips from today, consider signposting on the homepage. This is a good thing to do. Look at your homepage and make sure that it really does help people know where to go for the various things that you look after and where to go for principal authority. And then if you are thinking about social media posting, think about that structure, that flow. Where did I get it? I've got it here on a slide. There you go. Think about that flow. Make sure that the full and truthful article is on the website, the parish council or town council's website, and the shortened excerpted version with a link to the full one is on the Facebook page. Because that way there's no misunderstanding in terms of the true story. Now, I've put a little info panel there at the back of the slides there. I'll share this slide deck with Charmaine and Laura afterwards, but here's a little info panel there. If you're looking for communication, social media, comms support, Dan at Breakthrough is definitely somebody that you should be having a chat with. But if you're looking for general website support, accessibility, or just compliance, there's our details there. But hopefully you've been able to take away some good, helpful tips from today. And I would be very happy to answer any questions if anybody's got any now that you'd like to raise. No? Well, all I can assume is that everybody's either A, asleep, or B, I've absolutely nailed it with the presentation.
Mark, sorry, I couldn't find my little button to put my hand up.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Now you were talking about polls and surveys,
Yeah.
and consultations on the website. What device would you use? That SurveyMonkey, or is there another one that you would recommend?
Yeah, there are a couple. You obviously, if you're putting stuff like this on your website, you must do it in an accessible way, because often these surveys, these forms aren't that accessible. What do I mean by that? I mean, they don't work particularly well for people who use assistive technology. And people with disabilities use software and hardware, so they're quite tricky to navigate through if you can't see the screen. SurveyMonkey's okay. If you are an Aubergine customer, we have a poll and forms module that's fully accessible. If you have a different website platform, probably the best thing to do is to look at the one that's on offer there first of all. If there isn't anything there, then I would say SurveyMonkey is probably a good option. But what I would do is I would try and keep it within the website, because SurveyMonkey is a US-owned business. So theoretically, any data that's put into that system, the data is leaving the UK. So that does present a little bit of a GDPR exposure, depending on the data that you're asking for people.
Okay, and the other one, you were talking about interactive maps. We're just in the process of doing our information map, which will go on a A1 sign in the village. How do we then make that accessible to go onto the website?
Again, it depends on the website platform. The Aubergine platform has got an accessible map builder on there, so if you're on there, that's fine. If not, you might like to consider using something like the Parish Online map building tool as a service. That's pretty good, and that map can be embedded on a web page.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Well, it looks like we're it's early bath, 10 minutes early, but that's okay. Charmaine, thank you for inviting me to today. Thank you everybody who's on the presentation today. Thank you so much. My details, I'm sure you've all got already. If you have any questions that you would prefer to ask me directly afterwards, just drop me an email and I will endeavour to come back to you straight away. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you at the next event. I think we've got Chairs Conference coming up soon, haven't we, Charmaine?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that is in a couple of weeks' time.
Then I will see you all at the Chairs Conference.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. That was really informative, and I certainly will be watching it back again to pick out some bits. So amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.